did my Zine on the history of theater in ancient Greece, and this is the theater of Epidirius. And in the beginning, theater was just a small get together around a small stage and eventually grew into large stadiums, such as the Epidirius, and that was during the 16th century. And that's when theater really took off. Performances happen twice a year in the beginning of March until April, and then again in late winter, and they normally lasted about 7 days. And the stadium is constructed out of stone built into a hillside, and that is what amplifies the sounds to all seats, so audiences, no matter where you are sitting, are able to hear. And the stadium was able to hold up to 15,000 people. The stadium is considered, with the audience, the orchestra, and that is where the chorus performed, and that included dancing, music, chanting, singing, and then you had the altar, which was the sacrifice of goats to honor the god of wine. And then the stage is obviously where they performed, and then the back room they had their dressing room. And then normally, what originally happened was the theater was a festival, a religious festival honoring the gods, and one of those gods was Dionysus. And he was the god of wine, vegetation, and seasonal regeneration. And the theater would open with a song of goats, and a goat would be sacrificed for the god. And then you had the satyrs, who were the half man, half goat. They danced on the stage, and I heard they were pretty funny. And the theater was significant because it had a positive effect on or during warfare, and it brought the community closer. And so theaters were pretty important that even the poor attended. Only men were allowed to participate in the theater. At first, the stage was small. Only one man ran the show. He did all the different characters by switching to different masks. And the masks had to be big enough for everyone to see. And the masks were made with a mouthpiece that amplified the sound. They also had bright, drastic costumes as well. I thought that was really interesting how back in the day they were able to make a microphone effect using masks and the architecture built from stone. And then the orchestra helped the actor with the songs and dancing. And then later 3 characters were added, and eventually some actors that were added to help the play, but they didn't have speaking parts. I find it interesting how God of Wine was honored during the theater times. People would come and drink wine and have a good time and let their true emotions show. And that kind of makes sense why Dionysus was selected as the god. And then these were the masks. They were pretty big. They were made out of cork and wood. And because of that, there aren't really any surviving artifacts, if you will, of the masks. And then there were basically, Greeks were, they were masters in drama, and they had 2 genres that emerged from that drama, and that was tragedy and comedy. Tragedy wasn't just a sad play. It actually focused more on the character and the actions that the character took to determine his destiny. And comedy, while I'm sure it was funny, it included explicit sexual humor. And then during the festivals, each play would compete against each other to see who would win. To this day, there are 4 surviving playwrights, and that's by Achilles, Sophocles, and Euripides, and Aristophanes. And that was it. The Greek theater greatly impacted the theater today because the Greeks actually laid a foundation of the entertainment in the industry in today's world. While we may define comedy and tragedy different than the Greeks did, it still provides an escape from daily life, just like in the ancient times.